Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we have another shop talk video, and today's topic is going to be, should I buy a rebuilt title or salvage vehicle, and is it worth it? Now before we go ahead and begin on this topic, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button down below and definitely smash that like button because it helps the channel out. With that said, let's go ahead and get started on today's topic. So before we get into the topic, I just want to explain a few things that are a little bit confusing that a lot of people get wrong. So a rebuilt title vehicle is a vehicle that was once a salvage title vehicle that got fixed and put back on the road per whatever state it happened in. Now, a salvage title vehicle is a vehicle that can be sold as a salvage vehicle for either parts or for it to be rebuilt to eventually be inspected after it's been fixed to get converted to a rebuilt title. So those are the two common differences. I hear this intertwined with each other. A lot of people say I bought a salvage title vehicle or I bought a rebuilt title vehicle. Now depending on states, I know there may be some differences there. Some states may brand it as a salvage title even though it's rebuilt, and a lot of states will brandish it as a rebuilt title after it's been fixed. So I'm going to be using these terms in this video interchangeably. Hopefully you guys can keep up and try to explain what it is, but I'm going to try to say rebuilt because here in Illinois the way that it works is if you have a car that's been in an accident, it gets a salvage title, and then once you purchase it and you fix it up and you pass all your state inspections after it's fixed, it then gets branded in a rebuilt title and it's considered a rebuilt title vehicle. So just wanted to explain that. Now, throughout the years owning my own shop, I get a lot of people asking me, hey, is a rebuilt title car worth it? And my answer is always, it depends on who did the rebuild and how bad was the damage and what was the reason why it got, a rebuilt title, why it got branded as a salvage title for a rebuild. And what I find most of the time is that people will not know. They'll just consider it as a rebuild and not know or think through on why it got branded that way. Now, from my experience throughout the years, not all rebuild cars are bad. Sometimes I have found cars, even when I used to be on the insurance adjusting side of things before I became a full-fledged full-time mechanic. I dabbled in the insurance industry a little bit, and we would look at a car and let's say the value of the car was $5,000 and it got sideswiped, which basically doesn't hurt the structural integrity of the car or the actual vehicle itself, being a reliable vehicle. Let's just say two doors got damaged, the mirror and a fender. Common sideswipe that happens here in the city. If that car's value was $5,000 and it would cost about $3,000 to fix that vehicle for the insurance company paying for the work, what they would say is, hey, it's not worth it. We're just gonna buy out the customer because we don't want to have issues. And then once they pay out on the vehicle, they'll take that car title and that car, and depending on how they feel about it, and this can be misconstrued a lot because some companies will actually do a payout and then register it as a salvage title and brand it, and then sell it at a salvage auction for whoever wants to buy it and rebuild it. That's how it should commonly go. Now, I've seen insurance companies buy cars like this before and they still make it out with clean titles and never get branded. So it really depends. I'm not gonna say that if a car's ever been sold this way that it's always a rebuilt or salvage title. It can vary depending on the company and if the ball got dropped somewhere. But technically, if the insurance company makes a payout on a vehicle that they, let's say, exceed the mechanical repair limits or the money limits as far as the value of the car, they typically get branded as salvage and then they can be rebuilt and made into a rebuilt title. But either way, just wanted to throw that out there. So let's say that car got salvaged title because it had, let's say more money than it would be worth to fix it. Insurance company takes it and sells it. Now, once they sell it, a rebuilder or anyone can buy it if you have the means to get in there and do so. So now let's take this vehicle that we said had a $5,000 value, but let's say $3,000 to fix it. Insurance company buys it, pays the customer, they do a salvage title on it, send it to the auction, and a person buys it either for rebuilding or parts. But in this scenario, let's say the car gets rebuilt. Let's say they replace the doors, the mirror, the fender, whatever got, sideswiped, they repair it. after they completed the repairs, since the car has a salvage title, they have to take it to the state of Illinois and they do an inspection on the vehicle. And if the car passes the inspection, the state will then brand it with a rebuild title, which means you can register it and drive it on the road legally, get license plates for it, but the car will always be branded as a rebuild title, so people know that it had some trouble in its history, that had a payoff and probably severe damage. Now, in the scenario that I gave you, our car didn't have severe damage. It just needed a couple doors, a paint job, and small minute things, and it still carries the rebuild branded title. That's the type of car that, if that is a scenario, that you should buy if you're looking to save money, because at the end of the day, it's not anything that's going to affect the integrity of the vehicle. A couple doors, I mean, you can replace doors left and right, doesn't really ruin the structural integrity of a car. So in that scenario, you can have a really good, pretty much unnoticeable car that has a rebuild title just for something small. And if that is the type of vehicle you're looking to buy and you can know the history on it, it's definitely worth buying. But with that best case scenario, we also have the worst case scenarios where, let's say, a car got totaled and the engine wound up being pushed back into the firewall, it needs frame rails, needs a lot of work, and it gets salvaged out, insurance pays it out, a rebuilder buys it, they rebuild it, and then they sell it off because they do the inspections, everything just like we talked about, and they put it up for sale. Now that's the type of car that I'd probably say you don't want to buy, because that thing had severe mechanical and body issues and structural issues that you probably don't want to get caught up on. And the reason why I'm pointing out these two differences is basically here in Illinois, the state that I'm familiar with, I find that you do get rebuilders that will rebuild good cars that had small minute issues, but you have maybe twice or three times more of these shady people or shady shops that will buy a completely wrecked salvage title car, and they will rebuild it by cutting corners and doing it as cheaply as they can, not doing stuff correctly, and then sell it off for just as much money as a non-rebuild car, or just discounted maybe a couple grand and try to sell it. And people are buying cars that had severe, issues in the past with damages. And that's where it becomes an issue, and that's why a lot of people are iffy, because you don't know what you're getting. So before you buy a salvage title car, given these two examples that I've shared with you, the first thing that I always tell people is you want to know the history of the vehicle. Once you know the history of the vehicle, you want to do step number two, which is look it over and assess the damage and see. There will always be some sort of telltale sign. Unless this thing got redone all the way, it's really hard to tell. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. It's not really hard to tell where the damages occurred. If, let's say, the car had a replaced door, you can probably tell that the paint may look a little different. There'll be little signs here and there. So always, once you know the damages, or let's say the seller tells you, oh, I had a door replaced, that's why I got salvage title, follow up, check it, and if you're not able to check it, take it to a qualified place that can check it for you. And if everything checks out and they can verify, like, yeah, it just looks like it had this, or even better, let's say they pull up a report from insurance, or let's say a VIN check, and it says, got sideswiped, then you can rest assured that even if you buy that car as a rebuild title car, it didn't have a lot of damage. But you always want to watch out for the crappy rebuilds. Now, in Chicago, like I said, I've had many cars. I had a car once that was cut in half and welded to another car because that's how bad it got rear-ended. And these rebuilders basically took two cars to make one, and that actually sold to a customer. And they brought in the vehicle. I checked it out because they always had a creaking noise when they were hitting speed bumps. Here in the city, we got some really tall speed bumps in the side streets, and every time he'd hit one, it would make a creaking sound. He thought it was the rear shocks, and come to find out, when I lifted the car up, I can see where the vehicle was altered quite severely. And in that scenario, that car should have never been on the road. So when it comes to rebuilds, always know the history and know what was done. There are going to be chances where the car might have been rebuilt 10 years ago and has traded a lot of hands in between. But if you do find out that the car has a branded title, it's rebuilt, always get an inspection, always verify. Because it may be good, it may be bad, it's hard to say. Even me bringing up this topic, I can't say that you should buy that rebuild car or not. It'll basically be a fact-finding mission once you realize the car has a rebuild title, and you always want to check for this. Never just buy a car and not check the VIN history or anything on it. Even though they can be a little bit expensive, I believe now running a Carfax is like $60 or something like that. It's better to spend $60 to find something out than spend a few $1,000s to realize what you bought was branded and it was in a horrible accident and got rebuilt cheaply, and now you're stuck with it. So you always want to be careful. Another point that I want to point out there, even if a vehicle had a light damage and was branded as a rebuild title, that car now holds a lesser value than its counterpart that never had damage. So if you have two cars, and let's say a clean title retail car is worth $10,000, and you have the same exact car in a rebuild title status, same mileage, everything identical, that car is going to be considerably less in value with a rebuild title. Sometimes they probably lose between 40, maybe 50, even 60% of their value. It all really varies. And that's the key thing, is when you buy a rebuild title car, you should not be paying clean title car prices. If a clean title car is 10 grand, I would expect that rebuild title car to be around $4,000, maybe $5,000, somewhere around there. Because with that branded title comes a considerable less amount of value because it has a previous history. So that's pretty much all of the talking points that I wanted to point out. I do want to throw this out there. Not all rebuilders are bad, but here in the city, majority of them suck. They just do quick cut and paste jobs or quick repairs and try to pass along the car as fast as they can and make money, not being considerate of hurting people or possibly causing accidents or anything like that. So either way, guys, take what I said here as a grain of salt. Hopefully this video helps you guys out. Please comment, like, and subscribe because it definitely helps the channel grow. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.